The arrival. The alarm pierced through the quiet hum of the Luna Deep Space Monitoring Station, like a blade through silk. Commander Elena Vasquez shot up from her desk, coffee spilling across her reports as the red warning lights bathed the control room in an ominous glow. "What's the situation, Martinez?" She barked at her communications officer, a young man whose face had gone pale as moonlight. "Commander, we're picking up massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system," Martins replied, his voice cracking slightly. "The computer is having trouble processing the data. It keeps saying the readings are impossible." Elena strode to the main console, her boots clicking against the metal floor with military precision. She had been stationed on Luna for 3 years, monitoring deep space for asteroids and space debris. Nothing had prepared her for what she saw on the screen. "How many ships?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer would be bad. "Computer estimates 300 vessels, Commander. Each one is roughly the size of a city block. They're arranged in perfect formation, moving directly toward Earth at... This can't be right." "What can't be right, Martinez?" "They're traveling at 0.7 light speed, but they're decelerating. Whatever technology they're using, it's beyond anything we have." Elena felt her stomach drop. In her 20-year military career, she had never encountered alien life. Nobody had. Earth's expansion into space had been lonely, with no signs of intelligent life anywhere they looked. Now, it seemed, intelligent life had found them. "Get me Earth Command immediately," she ordered. "Priority Alpha. And Martinez, start recording everything. If these are first contact protocols, we need documentation." Within minutes, the weathered face of General Morrison appeared on the screen. The man looked like he hadn't slept in days, which probably meant he'd already been briefed by other stations. "Elena, what's your assessment?" Morrison asked without preamble. "Sir, we're looking at the largest fleet ever assembled. Their technology is clearly superior to ours. They're maintaining perfect formation across thousands of kilometers, and their ships are enormous. This isn't an exploration mission, General. This is an invasion force." Morrison nodded grimly. "We've been getting similar reports from every monitoring station in the system. The President is convening the World Defense Council in 1 hour. I need you to patch through to Dr. Marcus Chen at the Xenobiology Institute. If we're about to make first contact, we need him involved." Dr. Marcus Chen had spent his entire career studying the possibility of alien life. He had written papers on xenobiology, developed first contact protocols, and dreamed of the day humanity would meet its neighbors among the stars. Now, staring at the data from Luna Station, he realized that his dreams had been hopelessly naive. "The formation is military," he explained to the emergency council session via hologram. "There's no scientific arrangement here, no exploration pattern. This is a conquest fleet, and they're not trying to hide it." President Sarah Williams, a former military officer herself, leaned forward in her chair. "Dr. Chen, in your expert opinion, what are we dealing with? A species that has mastered interstellar travel and organized warfare on a massive scale. The fact that they're approaching Earth directly suggests they've been observing us. They know we're here, they know we're intelligent, and they've decided we're either a threat or a resource." "How long do we have?" asked Defense Secretary Parks. Ken consulted his calculations. At their current deceleration rate, they'll reach Earth orbit in 72 hours. The room fell silent. 72 hours to prepare for a war against an enemy they knew nothing about, using technology they couldn't comprehend. Captain Diego Torres commanded the Earth Defense Network's primary fleet from the EDS Defiant. His 40 ships represented the most advanced military technology humanity had ever created, against 300 alien vessels. They looked like toys. "Captain," called out his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "We're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. It's in English, sir." Torres felt his blood run cold. They knew human languages. They had been watching for a long time. "Put it on screen." The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge take a step backward. The alien was tall and imposing, with crystalline features that seemed to shift and change in the light. Its eyes were large and completely black, and when it spoke, its voice carried an otherworldly harmonic that made human teeth ache. Inhabitants of the third planet, the alien began. I am High Commander Zektar of the Hegemony Imperial Fleet. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. We have successfully integrated 237 civilizations before you. Your resistance is futile and will only result in unnecessary casualties. The alien paused, and Torres could swear it was looking directly at him through the screen. You have 60 hours to surrender your military forces and prepare for occupation. Your species will be relocated to suitable worlds within our empire. Compliance is not optional. Resistance will be met with complete annihilation. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Sir, Lieutenant Kim said quietly, what are our orders? Torres looked around at his crew. These were men and women who had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth. They were outnumbered 7-1 by an enemy with superior technology and experience conquering worlds. By any logical calculation, resistance was suicide. Lieutenant Kim, Torres said, his voice steady, send a message to the alien fleet. What should it say, sir? Torres smiled grimly. Tell them that humans don't surrender. Tell them that if they want our world, they'll have to take it from us. The first skirmish came 18 hours early. High Commander Zektar had decided to test human defenses with a probe force of 20 ships. It was a standard tactic that had worked on every world that Hegemony had conquered. Send a small force, evaluate the enemy's capabilities, and then crush them with overwhelming numbers. Captain Torres met the probe force with 8 ships at the edge of the asteroid belt. The engagement lasted exactly 14 minutes, and by every metric, the aliens won decisively. They destroyed 3 human ships and damaged 2 others while losing only 1 vessel. But something was wrong. The humans fought. Strangely, reported Sub-Commander Velth to High Commander Zektar. They used the asteroids as cover, which our tactical computers did not predict. They coordinated their attacks in patterns that seemed random but were actually quite effective. Zektar studied the battle recordings with growing unease. In 237 conquests, enemy tactics had always followed predictable patterns. Species with superior technology relied on their technological advantage. Species with superior numbers used mass attacks. Species with neither usually surrendered quickly. These humans had done something different. They had used their environment as a weapon, turning the asteroid belt into a maze of cover and concealment. They had attacked from unexpected angles, used decoy maneuvers, and most disturbing of all, they had shown no fear. Sir, Velth continued, there's something else. The human ships that were destroyed, they didn't try to escape. They continued fighting until the very end. Our psychological profiles suggest this behavior is extremely rare among sentient species. Zektar dismissed the report, but privately he was concerned. The Hegemony's success had always been based on predictability. They conquered worlds because they understood how civilizations fought. These humans were already proving to be unpredictable. On Earth, the news of the first battle spread quickly. 3 ships lost, dozens of brave souls dead, and the enemy had barely scratched their paint. But something strange happened in the hours following the battle. Instead of despair, humanity rallied. Dr. Chen was working around the clock in his laboratory, analyzing every scrap of data from the engagement. Elena, he called to Commander Vasquez, who had been transferred to Earth Command. Look at this. The screen showed a detailed analysis of the alien ship that had been destroyed. Their technology is more advanced than ours, but it's not magic. They use energy shields, plasma weapons, and quantum processors. We can understand this. More importantly, we can adapt to it. What are you saying? I'm saying that Captain Torres was right. These aliens have conquered hundreds of worlds, but they've never fought humans before. They don't understand us, and that's our advantage. Across the globe, humanity began to mobilize in ways that surprised even themselves. Scientists shared research freely across national boundaries. Military forces coordinated without the usual political interference. Civilian industries retooled to produce weapons and supplies with unprecedented speed. The hegemony had faced desperate civilizations before, but they had never encountered a species that became more unified and determined in the face of extinction. High Commander Zektar watched the human planet through the viewports of his flagship. In 48 hours, he would begin the full invasion. His fleet had the firepower to reduce the planet's surface to molten glass, but the hegemony preferred to keep worlds intact. Dead planets were useless to the Empire. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we're detecting unusual activity on the human world. They're launching hundreds of small vessels into orbit." "Evacuation ships." "Unknown, sir. They're too small to carry significant populations, but they're armed. It appears the humans are deploying some kind of orbital defense network." Zektar studied the tactical display. The human fleet was pathetically small, but they were spreading their forces across multiple orbital layers. It was an inefficient use of their limited resources, another sign of their primitive tactical thinking. "Maintain course," he ordered. "Prepare for final assault in 48 hours." But as the hegemony fleet approached Earth, something unprecedented happened. The small human vessels began to move in coordinated patterns that defy the aliens' tactical computers. They weren't forming traditional battle lines or defensive formations. Instead, they were creating a three-dimensional maze of intersecting orbits around their planet. On the bridge of the EDS Defiant, Captain Torres smiled as he watched his plan unfold. The aliens expected humans to fight like every other species they had conquered. They expected formations, predictable tactics, and logical deployment of forces. They were about to learn that humans had never been particularly logical when their survival was at stake. "All ships," Torres broadcast to the fleet, "remember your training. We're not trying to win a traditional battle. We're trying to survive long enough to learn their weaknesses. Every minute we stay alive is a minute our scientists can study them." "Sir," Lieutenant Kim reported, "the alien fleet is beginning their final approach. They're moving into attack formation." Torres nodded. "Signal all ships. Operation Chaos begins now." The tide turns. The full hegemony assault began at 800 Earth Standard Time on a Tuesday morning that would forever change human history. High Commander Zektar deployed his fleet in a classic orbital bombardment formation, a tactic that had broken the defenses of hundreds of worlds. But the humans weren't where they were supposed to be. "Sir," reported Tactical Officer Krendax, "the human fleet has scattered. They're not maintaining any defensive formation. Our targeting computers are having difficulty tracking them." Zektar watched the tactical display with growing frustration. The human ships were moving in seemingly random patterns, using the debris of their own destroyed satellites as cover, diving into the planet's atmosphere, and then rocketing back into space. It was chaos, and chaos was something the hegemony had never learned to handle. "All units, fire at will," Zektar commanded. "Destroy anything that moves." The space around Earth erupted in brilliant flashes of plasma and laser fire. The hegemony fleet poured devastating firepower into the orbital zone, enough energy to sterilize a continent. But hitting the human ships proved nearly impossible. Captain Torres had split his fleet into individual units, each operating independently. They used Earth's magnetic field to mask their signatures, hid behind chunks of orbital debris, and employed every trick that generations of human pilots have developed. They fought like pirates, like guerrillas, like anything except a traditional military force. Defiant to courage, Torres broadcast to Captain Maria Santos on another ship. "How are you holding up?" "We've lost engines, but we're still firing," Santos replied. "Torres, these aliens fight like they're playing chess. They expect us to follow rules. Then let's show them that humans don't play by anyone's rules but our own." Down on Earth, Dr. Chen was having the breakthrough of his career. Every engagement with the alien fleet provided more data, and the pattern was becoming clear. "Elena, look at this," he called excitedly to Commander Vasquez. "The aliens' technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly rigid. Their ships are designed for specific tactical roles, and they can't adapt when those roles become ineffective." Vasquez studied the data streaming from the orbital battle. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying their strength is also their weakness. They've conquered hundreds of worlds using the same tactics because they work, but they've never had to innovate, never had to adapt. They're like a master chess player who's never encountered someone willing to flip the board." "Can we exploit that?" Dr. Chen's eyes lit up. "Elena, I think we can do more than exploit it. I think we can turn their own technology against them." While the space battle raged overhead, every major city on Earth had become a hive of activity. The global response to the invasion had been unprecedented in human history. Ancient enemies worked side by side, sharing resources and knowledge freely. The threat of extinction had done what centuries of diplomacy could not. It had united humanity. In a converted automotive factory in Detroit, engineer Rosa Martinez was overseeing the production of modified missiles. Using data from the space battle, her team had figured out how to recalibrate human weapons to penetrate alien shields. "The trick," she explained to her team, "is that their shields are designed to stop high-energy attacks. But if we hit them with rapid-fire, low-energy pulses, we can overload their frequency modulators." In Tokyo, a team of programmers led by Kenji Nakamura had been working for 3 straight days to crack the alien communication protocols. "Their system is quantum encrypted," he explained to his exhausted team, "but they're using a standard imperial frequency. If we can jam their communications, their coordination will collapse." In London, Dr. Rebecca Thompson had made a disturbing discovery about the alien psychology. "They're not individuals," she reported to the World Defense Council. "They're part of a collective consciousness. That's why they're so coordinated, but it's also why they can't adapt. They literally cannot think outside their predetermined patterns." All of this information was flowing to Commander Vasquez at Earth Command, who was coordinating the most complex military operation in human history. She was fighting a war on multiple fronts: space, ground, cyber, and psychological. High Commander Zektar was beginning to realize that something had gone terribly wrong with the Earth conquest. His fleet had been engaged for 6 hours, and while they had inflicted casualties on the humans, they had failed to break their defenses. More disturbing, the human ships were becoming more effective as the battle progressed. "Sir," reported Sub-Commander Velf, "we're losing communication with several squadrons. The humans appear to have developed some kind of jamming technology." "Impossible," Zektar replied. "Our communications are quantum encrypted. No primitive species should be able to interfere with them." But even as he spoke, red warnings appeared across his tactical display. Ships were losing contact with the fleet network, operating independently, and making tactical errors. The perfect coordination that was the hegemony's greatest strength was breaking down. "Sir," his intelligence officer added, "human ships are also employing new weapons. Our shield frequencies are being disrupted by rapid pulse attacks." Zektar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of conquest: doubt. These humans were adapting faster than any species in recorded history. They were learning from every engagement, modifying their tactics in real time, and somehow turning the hegemony's own advantages against them. In orbit, Captain Torres was coordinating the most important gambit of the war. Using intelligence gathered from the battle, Earth's forces had identified the hegemony command ship. It was larger than the others, heavily defended, and positioned at the center of the alien formation. "All units," Torres broadcast, "Operation Checkmate is go. Remember, we don't need to destroy it. We just need to get close enough for the good doctor to work his magic." Dr. Chen was aboard the modified cargo ship Prometheus, which had been equipped with the most advanced electronic warfare package ever built. His mission was simple in concept but nearly impossible in execution. Get close enough to the alien command ship to upload a virus into their network. The virus won't destroy their systems, Chen explained to his team as they approached the battle zone. Instead, it will introduce chaos into their decision-making algorithms. Think of it as giving their collective consciousness a case of schizophrenia. The Prometheus dove into the battle, protected by a screen of human fighters who were willing to sacrifice everything to get the cargo ship to its target. Torres watched from the Defiant as brave pilots threw their ships against impossible odds, buying precious seconds for Chen's mission. Lieutenant Kim looked up from her console with tears in her eyes. "Captain, we've lost the valor, the justice, and the freedom. They're not responding to communications." Torres nodded grimly. Those ships represented hundreds of brave souls who had died to protect their world. But their sacrifice was working. The Prometheus was getting closer to the alien command ship. High Commander Zektar watched the human cargo ship approach with bewilderment. It was clearly not a military vessel, and it was flying directly toward the most heavily defended position in his fleet. Were the humans attempting some kind of suicide attack? "All units, focus fire on that vessel," he ordered. "Destroy it immediately." But the human fighters were providing cover with a desperation that the hegemony had never encountered. They flew their ships into the path of plasma bolts, used their own vessels as shields, and continued fighting even when their ships were crippled and burning. "Prometheus to Earth Command," Dr. Chen reported as his ship shuddered under alien fire. "We're taking heavy damage, but we're almost in range. Initiating upload sequence now." The virus that Dr. Chen had created was unlike anything in human history. It was designed specifically to exploit the hegemony's collective consciousness, introducing random variables into their decision-making process. Instead of the perfect coordination that had made them unstoppable, the aliens would experience confusion, contradiction, and chaos. "Upload complete," Chen reported. "Now we just have to see if it works." The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the hegemony fleet, ships began receiving contradictory orders. Some vessels were told to advance, while others were ordered to retreat. Weapons systems locked onto friendly ships. The perfect formation that had terrified Earth began to dissolve into confusion. High Commander Zektar felt his connection to the fleet network fluctuate and distort. Voices in his head were giving different commands, contradictory information, impossible orders. For the first time in his existence, he was truly alone, cut off from the collective consciousness that had guided every decision of his life. What is happening?" he asked aloud, but his officers were experiencing the same confusion. The hegemony fleet, which had operated as a single organism for 1,000 years, was suddenly a collection of individual ships with no coordination. Captain Torres saw the alien formation falling apart and knew this was humanity's moment. "All ships, general attack. Hit them while they're confused." The remaining human fleet, reinforced by hastily converted civilian vessels, pressed their advantage. Without their coordination, the alien ships were just as vulnerable as anyone else. The technological superiority that had seemed insurmountable was neutralized by good old-fashioned chaos. But the real turning point came when the virus spread beyond the fleet network. The hegemony had made the mistake of connecting their ships to the Imperial communication grid, and Dr. Chen's creation began propagating across their entire empire. On worlds hundreds of light years away, hegemony forces suddenly found themselves unable to coordinate. Rebellions that had been suppressed for centuries erupted as the iron grip of the collective consciousness loosened. The empire that had seemed eternal began to crumble in a matter of hours. High Commander Zektar, isolated in his command chamber and experiencing individual thought for the first time, made a decision that would have been impossible under the collective consciousness. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "Human vessels," he said, his voice carrying new emotional harmonics. I request to speak with your leader." Captain Torres appeared on the screen, his uniform torn and his face streaked with smoke, but his eyes burning with determination. "I'm Captain Torres. What do you want?" Zektar struggled to find words for concepts that had never existed in his language. I want to surrender. Not just this fleet, but I think I want to be free. The war ended not with a great explosion or a final desperate battle, but with a conversation between two warriors who had gained respect for each other through combat. The hegemony fleet, what remained of it, surrendered unconditionally. More importantly, the virus that Dr. Chen had created continued to spread through the alien empire, liberating worlds and ending a tyranny that had lasted for millennia. In the months that followed, Earth became the center of a new kind of galactic civilization. The former hegemony worlds, experiencing individual consciousness for the first time, looked to humanity for guidance on how to be free. It was a responsibility that humanity embraced with characteristic determination and ingenuity. Commander Vasquez, now promoted to admiral, stood in the rebuilt Luna station and watched ships from dozens of worlds coming and going from Earth orbit. They came seeking trade, knowledge, and most of all, the secret of human adaptability. Dr. Chen, she said to her old friend, what do you think made the difference? Why were we able to defeat an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds? Dr. Chen smiled and looked out at the stars. Because we're human, Elena. We don't accept that things have to be the way they've always been. When someone tells us something is impossible, we find a way to make it possible. When someone says we have to surrender, we choose to fight. When someone says we have to follow their rules, we make our own. And when someone threatens to destroy our world, we show them that humans don't just survive. We thrive. We adapt. We overcome. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we help others learn to do the same. The Earth that had been targeted for conquest had indeed turned the tide of war, not just for humanity, but for an entire galaxy. The species that had seemed primitive and helpless had taught the universe a lesson that would echo through the ages. Never underestimate the power of beings who refuse to give up, who adapt to any challenge, and who fight not just for survival, but for the right to be free. In the end, the hegemony had been correct about one thing: resistance had been futile. But they hadn't understood that it was their own resistance to change, their inability to adapt, that had doomed them. Humanity had shown the galaxy that the future belonged not to those who conquered, but to those who could grow, learn, and become something greater than they had been before. The stars were no longer lonely, and humanity had made sure they never would be again.